you ask, and I try to answer as best as I can. Hey guys, I'm Grecia, also known as Grace, and I am so happy to be answering the questions that you left on my Instagram story as well as the community post. So without further ado, let's get started with the first question. So how did I get started with digital drawing? I started when I was around 12 years old, and I used Photoshop at that time, and I actually used a mouse instead of a pen because I didn't have a tablet or a pen. So that was quite a challenge. I guess I was appealed to drawing digitally because I am very impatient when it comes to drawing, so it was really satisfying to just use the bucket tool and fill in the blank spaces without having to draw like little by little on a piece of paper. And also shading with multiple colors and all the endless possibilities of colors that you had as opposed to all the colors that come in a package. I guess I just wanted to create many artworks as possible and as fast as I could because my brain just kept thinking of new ideas for new artworks. And digital art was definitely the fastest and cleanest way to do artwork like that. And it was very satisfying. Well, still is. I do enjoy traditional art too, but I just love the endless possibilities that you can do with digital tools. So you also ask, where did I learn this from? Is it an inborn talent or something that I learned? So this was many years ago, so definitely a lot of YouTube tutorials. I am self-taught, so I was just watching a lot of YouTube tutorials on how to do different shading styles, different techniques. I really never took like any art courses at all. I explored the entire Photoshop software, discovering new brushes, new tools, everything that you can do in the software so that I can create like multiple complex artworks, basically just exploring and discovering new things. I honestly always been into art since I can remember. I remember my mom always tells me that whenever we went to the movies to see an animated film, I would just come home and start drawing the characters that I like the most. And this was before I had access to Googling reference images because I was like 4 years old or something. So I would just draw like out of my imagination. So I guess that kind of helped to give me that artistic view, like training my memory into seeing all these little details that I see in art. So that was definitely helpful to, develop my career as an artist. I was also asked a lot if I do my own drawings or if I just color. And I guess that's a common misconception. I think many of you know me for my manga colorings, but yes, I do my own drawings as well. I do draw more from scratch actually than I do manga coloring. It can be quite challenging drawing from scratch, especially if you're new. The proportions will always be wrong, believe me, I've been there too. It takes years and years of practice. But a good way to start is having a side-by-side of a character that you really want to draw. I don't recommend tracing because this way you're not gonna actually learn the technique. You may trace anatomical references if you want to, but when it comes to facial expressions, hairstyles, clothing, I think it's best if you do it yourself. This is the only way to get better and train your mechanic. And don't expect to create a masterpiece the very first time. It's better if you're not satisfied with your first piece, because as an artist, you are the very first critique of your own work. You will stare at your artwork later and start seeing all the flaws and things that you could actually improve. I still go through the same process every single time, but you can only get better with practice. I was also asked if it was weird transferring from paper into digital. Well, it's definitely a not feeling because everything is so different. In my experience, I transfer from paper and pencil to a screen and a mouse because I didn't have a tablet and a pen back then. So that is one thing I wish I had when I started digital art. But if you do have a tablet and a pen, it can be very similar. Smoother, actually. I think because in paper, you get all the pencil smudges and all the erasing back and forth, so it can be a little messy at the end. Whereas in digital art, you can create as many mistakes as you want because you can just click the undo button and start all over. It just makes art look more refined and clean, in my opinion, especially if you're a new artist. And there are so many brushes that mimic traditional artwork as well, like you have watercolor brushes, oil painting, etc. So you can create multiple possibilities. Now, this is a topic that I really enjoy talking about. It's about promoting yourself. So I had questions about how to promote my work and how do you build a following as an artist. So first of all, consistency. This is what will get you engagement with others online. I like to schedule my posts consistently and interact with my followers. I am not saying quantity over quality necessarily, but in social media, people want to see content back and forth all day. People will easily forget about creators if they don't post consistently. It's sad, but true. Don't raise your quality as an artist by posting 3 half-effort works a week, but instead plan out a schedule to post. So I will show you how I go about organizing my posts. First, it's almost guaranteed that there will be a new chapter coloring from One Piece every week. And whenever there's a break week, I tend to go back to previous panels from other chapters, from older chapters even, previous arcs, and try to color like a small but significant panel to have something up there. This also helps me keep practicing my manga coloring skills. However, I don't overexert myself by coloring like a very complicating double spread if it's not necessary. And aside from that, I like to draw like single characters in cute outfits or cute poses, or maybe recreating a small scene or something where I can have fun trying out new color palettes and have fun creating new line arts, new shading techniques, and so on. So that gives me at least 2 posts a week. Aside from that, try to comment and share other artists' posts so that you can remind everyone of your presence online. This will remind your followers that you are still here, creating and appreciating art. Another key point is your personality. It doesn't matter if you're a very talented artist. If you have poor communication skills and you're unfriendly, people will unfollow you. I genuinely love replying to every single comment that I get and all the compliments, and having that little interaction with my followers, because this makes your followers feel safe in your community and makes them want to approach you even more. So show that you're friendly and that you're creating art to contribute to this fandom, and then have this fandom interact with you. One of these questions was split with other 2 questions additionally to that, and one of them is, what is the hardest part of coloring and how do I overcome it? So I would say the hardest part for me is actually drawing hands, but there is another question further down in the video that I will answer that is related to this, so we'll get to that. And what is my favorite part of an artwork that engages me the most? And honestly, I love drawing and shading faces. That is the first thing that I start with and the one part that I put the most time into. I love giving extra attention to the eyes and the facial expressions, as well as the shading. And I love adding different tones and dramatic shadings, always my favorite part. So now let's talk about art style. So you ask, how do I create my own art style? This is a very difficult thing to do, and it will only be visible after a long time of drawing, because you start drawing characters that already exist, and your aim is to draw them as accurate as possible. So you tend to try to draw them exactly as the original creator. However, when you start drawing from scratch, it will be very difficult to mimic the exact same art style as the original creator, because the proportions are always going to be different. For example, I try to draw as closely as I can to Oda's art style when creating my One Piece fan arts. However, I do sharper features on the faces. I love a good cat eye, like sharper outer corner of the eyes. I like more defined noses, and I love drawing lips. I also like doing softer and shinier hairstyles, as well as using very soft pastel colors and light colors for the line art as well. So while I'm trying to make the characters look very much alike to the original version, I do my own little twist because that is what I like to see. So you will start discovering your own art style as you're drawing over and over the same characters. So experiment with different color palettes and brushes and whatever you think looks good. So there was another question that said, does having a similar art style to a mangaka or a famous artist a bad thing? And I guess what I just explained kind of goes hand in hand with this. But to answer the question, no, I don't think it's a bad thing, as long as you can still make your work be recognizable as your own. So say for example, you're very talented at mimicking Oda's art style exactly as he does it. So now create a brand new scene, a different expression, or make the character in a completely different outfit. So it still looks unique and people immediately recognize your work and can say, oh, I know this artwork, this is this person's art. Because at the end of the day, you want to be recognized as a unique artist. So let's move on now to motivation. So I was asked, how can I keep my motivation and my momentum going? And I think that when you are really a fan of a series, it just comes naturally. I always have a billion ideas of One Piece artwork that I want to create, as well as from other anime, so that has never really been an issue for me. I think that when you're passionate about something and you really want to create artwork, it just opens up the possibility for anything. Although when I like inspiration, not so much motivation. I would often look at other artists and see what they're doing, or look for other photographs and get inspiration from that. I often go through Pinterest, where I normally have like makeup and fashion photographs over there, but then I try to imagine the characters in that situation or in that outfit or in a certain pose, so I always get ideas from there to start drawing a new piece. So that is absolutely valid. Or sometimes just seeing a picture that I really like the color palette, it gives me inspiration to create something similar. There is always a source of inspiration wherever you look at, but it is also completely okay and healthy to take a break and do other activity. You cannot force art. If you have a creative mind block, don't fight it. Take a break, go for a walk, clear your mind, and the inspiration and motivation will come back to you. So still on the same topic of inspiration, you ask, what urges me to draw something? So what I often do is take small panels from important or recent manga chapters and expand on it. I redrew this very small panel of Yamato and Chopper hugging Luffy and Zoro, or this very small panel of Shanks with Luffy as a kid, or even Robin doing her Gigante Fleur attack on Egghead Island. And another thing I would normally do is crossovers. Get in touch with your viewers' nostalgia, like Teen Titans, Kim Possible, Totally Spies, Scooby-Doo, Winx Club, etc. Another thing I like to do is do a little twist on existing manga panels and expand on it a little bit on how I think the character would react based on their personalities. Like for example, my comic of what if Yamato had joined the crew, or Robin's and Law's interaction about Law being a hyena. Or even Robin reacting angry at Law for being mean to Chopper on that chapter when they departed from Wano. These are all canon scenes from the manga, but I did a little non-canon twist that still makes sense. All of these shows my understanding of the series, and the fanbase will always appreciate that. It creates a conversation and interaction with your followers instead of just liking a nice artwork. Now let's move on to selling your work and building connections. So somebody asked me how I started monetizing my work. And to be honest, I don't quite remember how it started, but I had people reach out to me trying to buy fan arts or manga colorings that I have done in the past. But mainly what I sell besides thumbnail art is custom artworks. For example, drawing the customer in a One Piece style. I think those are really fun and creative because people enjoy looking at themselves in the art style as their favorite series. So those are usually bestsellers. Now this question is gonna have a very elaborate answer because it's a very important topic. So how do you establish a work relationship with a content creator to sell thumbnail art? So as cliche as it sounds, the most important thing is trust. You need to make sure the content creator trusts you with their work. What I mean by this, let's imagine the content creator you work for or want to work for. I will set as an example my work with Liam from Grandline Review. He releases multiple videos throughout the week, so he's obviously very busy writing scripts, creating content, editing, talking to all of these people, and so on. So he will send me documents with mockups and reference images for me to work with. So naturally, I should be able to work with this information without interrupting him as much, since we want to work as fast as possible. So he's trusting me that I can work efficiently and, most importantly, comply to the deadlines. Another thing to keep in mind is how you take feedback. Artists tend to be a little negative to negative feedback, and this may cause problems in the long run. If you make an artwork for yourself, you can do any art style, any shading style, use any color palettes that you want, so you can be completely free with it. But if the creator is asking you for a specific art style or shading style, if you really want to work with them, you need to follow through these little nitpicky details that they're asking you for. For example, my personal art style is soft colors and very detailed highlight and shading. Whereas with Grandline Review's thumbnails, I need to use very bold, stark shading, very vibrant colors, and intense glow colors. So for his thumbnails, I will use that art style, and for my own work, I'll do whatever I want. And it's perfectly fine. This type of open-minded and well-rounded mentality will make you the content creator's go-to for artwork. Also, communication is key. Establishing a good communication and friendliness with your customers will make them want to keep doing business with you. So now I'm gonna answer a couple of manga coloring related questions. So I get asked a lot, how do you know what color to give a background? And also what color to use if there is no reference? Well, for these questions, luckily, I just posted a video explaining how to color detailed backgrounds. And for the panels that have blank backgrounds, I explain on my do's and don'ts of manga coloring how to decide which color works best for the general coloring. And for colorings that have no reference, there's always gonna be new characters in the manga that we have no reference at all whatsoever. But it shouldn't really matter what color you decide to give them since there is no reference, so it is up to you and your creative mind to decide what looks best. In One Piece, for example, Oda likes to give characters very colorful and vibrant colors, so normally you'd want to stick to that. Usually when an outfit is colored black in the manga, it will be a darker color, or in some cases red or purple as we see with Luffy's Onigashima outfit. And if it is white, it is most likely a lighter color, such as yellow, orange, or green. So based on that, you can choose which colors to consider and which to discard depending if it's black or white. Okay, let's move on to anatomy practice. So I get asked what is the easiest way to draw body proportions, how to draw hands if you're a beginner, and just anatomy practice in general. This is still one very difficult area for me. So easiest way to draw body proportions? Look for references online. You can look up fighting poses, sitting poses, back views, etc. You can either opt to practice by tracing the pose and then adapting the face and the hair and outfit of your character of choice. But in the long run, once you feel more comfortable, I would hope you would try and draw them yourself instead of tracing. It is perfectly okay to have a reference pose or photo to mimic the body shape, the angles, and so much more. Artists do this a lot. I often use actual photographs to see body proportions and poses a lot better. What I also do a lot, especially when drawing hands, is that I will actually make the pose in real life, and then I will take a photo of it and then try to draw it as accurate as possible. Again, you can use your own photo and trace over it, or you can have it on the side as a reference. This way you can take photos of making a fist or lifting some fingers or just grabbing some objects. So it's an endless gallery of reference photos that you can use for your own drawing. I am still not great at drawing hands, but it is normal to many artists. Just keep practicing. These are not necessarily answers to questions, these are more like suggestions for videos, but you guys want to see a tutorial on how to color hair and also a tutorial for special effects such as auras, explosions, and so much much more. And there will be videos about these topics soon, so make sure to subscribe to my channel so you can be notified when they're up. You ask about what drawing programs are best for beginners, as well if it's the best choice to have an iPad or not. So I do have an iPad and it is the most comfortable thing to use. I had in the past some other drawing tablets and pens, but I personally wasn't enjoying it as much. But I cannot say I have experience with other drawing devices. And as for software, I use Procreate and it is my personal favorite, but it is sadly only available for iPad and iPhone, and it is a one-time purchase of $10 US, I believe. However, Ibis Paint is available for Android devices, Windows PCs, iPads, tablets, anything. And the best part is that it's free. I have a video comparing Procreate and Ibis Paint if you want to check that out later, but for beginners, I would absolutely recommend Ibis Paint. I think a lot of popular artists use that app as well. You also ask how many brushes do I use? And I always use the same liner brush, which I created from scratch. I have a short tutorial on my channel if you want to check the settings for that, but it is very similar to the Procreate default brushes that you find on the inking tab. And as for coloring, I go back and forth with a round brush and a soft brush. Recently, I've been enjoying creating really harsh strokes as well as blended with other softer brushes. This way it looks more like a painting instead of having everything airbrushed together. Just recently, I purchased a new brush package from Jinx Sketch and I have been enjoying the brushes a lot. I will link down below where you can get them. And honestly, if you see a brush that you like, don't be afraid to acquire them. I was skeptical at first downloading new brushes, but it is actually very fun and I've been enjoying it a lot. I have already chosen my new main brushes as opposed to the defaults by Procreate. And now I'm just gonna answer a couple other random questions that you guys asked. I wanted to include as many as possible as I could, but I didn't want to make this video too long. Maybe by the time that we reach this part, the video is already too long. So you asked what my favorite Straw Hat to draw is, and I think it's very obvious that it's Nico Robin. What was my first One Piece drawing? And this is a little embarrassing because I'm not so proud of this artwork, but it was actually Chopper. I did this one on Photoshop actually. But then I followed up making this very epic ace drawing. These two were made in Photoshop using my mouse, so yeah. How long does it take me to draw and color each piece? I think it depends. Normally single characters will take me around 1 to 3 hours, depending on the details. And as for manga colorings, it depends if it's a single page. That will normally take about 3 to 4 hours to color. But if it's a double spread with more details, it can take up to 7 hours. And of course, we have a question from Grand Line Review. He asks, what's the most annoying thing he's asked me to make? This one is hard to answer. I believe anything that had a Kaido in the thumbnail was annoying, since he's a very difficult character to draw, especially when he needed to be wacky and funny expressions because he doesn't have the best face to manipulate into something ridiculous. Oh, and not so much annoying, but very time-consuming when he asked me to draw 45 devil fruits. Not kidding, here are the receipts. Thank you so much for sticking to the end of this video. Hopefully you learned a few tips about my insights in my art journey. Leave a comment below if your questions were answered. I tried to answer as many as I could, and I hope you're looking forward to the future tutorial. I have a lot planned, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss them. Thank you for watching.